Teachers, this is Ivani from Ecstatic Earth Arts. Hey YouTube Teachers, this is Ivani from Ecstatic Earth Arts, and I am here today to talk about keeping kids in the craft, and I am just in the midst of getting everything up on my screens. I still have to get Instagram happening. I have a little pre-show planned. Hey Instagram Teachers, this is Ivani from Ecstatic Earth Arts. Some crazy hair happening today. Kind of just threw it up real quick before I started this. Well, you get the idea. I am in the midst of getting everything all squared away, so all my screens are right. This is
keeping kids in the craft, and I am just in the midst of getting everything.
There we go. So now that we have all the extra things turned off, the first thing I want to start, I thought my little pre-show today, because we're talking about keeping kids in the craft, I would share with you one of my favorite children's books that I think is super witchy friendly. And this is Stregonona by Tommy DePaola, which as I understand, his author actually passed away earlier this year. Very sad. But Witchling number 3 of mine, this is one of our absolute favorite books, so I figured while we were waiting to get started chatting about keeping kids in the craft, I would read this to you while we wait for folks to show up. So this is Stregonona by Tommy DePaola. My 5-year-old loves me reading this book to her, so hopefully everybody else finds it entertaining also. Hey everybody on Instagram, we're going to be chatting about keeping kids in the craft, and while we wait for folks to show up, I figured I would read y'all a book. This is Stregonona by Tommy DePaola. Alright, so let me shift so everybody can see. In a town in Calabria, a long time ago, there lived an old lady called Stregonona, which meant Grandma Witch. Although all the people in the town talked about her in whispers, they all went to see her if they had troubles. Even the priests and the sisters of the convent went, because Stregonona did have a magic touch. She could cure a headache with oil and water and a hairpin. She made special potions for the girls who wanted husbands. And she was very good at getting rid of warts. But Stregonona was getting old, and she needed someone to help her keep her little house and garden. So she put up a sign in the town square. And Big Anthony, who didn't pay attention, went to see her. "Anthony," said Stregonona, "you must sweep the house and wash the dishes. You must weed the garden and pick the vegetables. You must feed the goat and milk her, and you must fetch the water. For this, I will give you 3 coins and a place to sleep and food to eat." "Oh, grazie," said Big Anthony. "The one thing you must never do," said Stregonona, "is touch the pasta pot. It is very valuable, and I don't let anyone touch it." "Oh, see, yes," said Big Anthony. Hey everybody on Instagram, I'm just reading this book as a little pre-show while we wait for folks to show up. I'm going to be doing a video today about keeping kids in the craft, so I thought it would be really appropriate to share one of my favorite witchy children's books. So this is Stregonona. And so the days went by. Big Anthony did his work, and Stregonona met with the people who came to see her for headaches and husbands and warts. Big Anthony had a nice big bed to sleep in next to the goat shed, and he had food to eat. One evening, when Big Anthony was milking the goat, he heard Stregonona singing. Peeking in the window, he saw Stregonona standing over the pasta pot. Hey Megan, I am reading a quick book while we wait for folks to join us to talk about keeping kids in the craft. Stregonona sang, "Bubble, bubble, pasta pot. I like boiled meats and pasta nice and hot. I'm hungry and it's time to sup. Boiled enough pasta to fill me up." And the pasta pot bubbled and boiled and suddenly was filled with steaming hot pasta. Then Stregonona said, "Enough, enough, my pasta pot. I have my pasta nice and hot. So simmer down my pot of clay until I'm hungry another day." Hey Vivica, hey Bree, we are doing Stregonona. Bree will appreciate it because I believe she actually bought this for my daughter originally. So after Big Anthony heard Stregonona sing the song, he goes, "How wonderful," said Big Anthony. "That is a magic pot for sure." And Stregonona called Big Anthony in for supper. But too bad for Big Anthony because he didn't get to see Stregonona blow 3 kisses to the magic pasta pot. Hey everybody on Instagram, we're talking about keeping kids in the craft today, and I'm just doing this little bit of reading while we wait for folks to show up. If you guys are here and you're paying attention, if you could give me a hashtag live in the comments, that'd be great. Or if you're watching after the fact, hashtag replay. Hey Kristen, we're talking about keeping kids in the craft, and I'm reading a book while we wait for people to join us. This is Stregonona. And then this is what happened. The next day when Big Anthony went to the town square to fetch the water, he told everyone about the pasta pot. And naturally, everyone laughed at him. Because it sounded so silly, a pot that cooked itself. You'd better go and confess to the priest, Big Anthony, they said. Such a lie. And Big Anthony was angry, and that wasn't a very good thing to be. I'll show them, he said to himself. Someday I will get the pasta pot, and I will make it cook, and then they will all have to believe me, and they'll be sorry. And that day came sooner than even Big Anthony would have thought, because 2 days later Stregonona said to Big Anthony, Anthony, I must go over the mountain to the next town to see my friend Strega Amelia. Sweep the house and weed the garden, feed the goat and milk her, and for your lunch there are some bread and cheese in the cupboard. And remember, don't touch the pasta pot. Oh, yes, see, Stregonona, said Big Anthony, but inside he was thinking, my chance has come. As soon as Stregonona was out of sight, Big Anthony went inside, pulled the pasta pot off the shelf, and put it on the floor. Now, let's see if I can remember the words, said Big Anthony. Bubble, bubble, pasta pot, boil me some pasta nice and hot. I'm hungry and it's time to sup. Boil enough to fill me up. And sure enough, the pot bubbled and boiled and began to fill up with pasta. Aha, said Big Anthony. And he ran to the town square and jumped on the fountain and shouted, Everyone, get forks and plates and platters and bowls, pasta for all at Stregonona's house. Big Anthony has made the magic pasta pot work. Of course, everyone laughed, but ran home to get forks and plates and platters and bowls. And sure enough, when they got to Stregonona's, the pasta pot was so full it was beginning to overflow. Big Anthony was a hero. He scooped out pasta and filled the plates and platters and bowls. There was more than enough for all the townspeople, including the priest and the sisters from the convent. And some people came back for 2 and 3 helpings, but the pot was never empty. When all had their fill, Big Anthony sang, Enough, enough, my pasta pot, I have my pasta nice and hot, so simmer down my pot of clay, until I'm hungry another day. But alas, he did not blow the 3 kisses. He went outside, and to the applause of the crowd, Big Anthony took a bow. He was so busy listening to compliments from everyone that he didn't notice the pasta pot was still bubbling and boiling, until a sister from the convent said, Oh, Big Anthony, look! And pasta was pouring out of the pot all over the floor of Stregonona's house and was coming out the door. Big Anthony rushed in and shouted the magic words again, but the pot kept on bubbling. He took the pot off the floor, but the pasta kept pouring out of it. Big Anthony grabbed the cover and put it on the pot and sat on it, but the pasta raised the cover and Big Anthony as well and spilled onto the floor of Stregonona's house. Hey Sarah, we're talking about keeping kids in the craft, and I'm just doing a little bit of reading while we wait for folks to come. Just realized on YouTube this is angled so that nobody can see the pictures for sure. Or on Facebook. Ooh, technology issues here. All right, let's. I'll hold it up better. Stop! Yelled Big Anthony. But the pasta did not stop, and if someone hadn't grabbed poor Big Anthony, the pasta would have covered him up. The pasta had all but filled the little house. Out of the windows and through the doors came the pasta, and the pot kept on bubbling. The townspeople began to worry. Do something, Big Anthony, they shouted. Big Anthony sang the magic song again, but without the 3 kisses, it did no good. By this time, the pasta was on its way down the road, and all the people were running to keep ahead of it. town from the pasta, shouted the mayor. Get mattresses, tables, doors, anything to make a barricade. But even that didn't work. The pot kept bubbling, and the pasta kept coming. This is really, really low. Gotcha. Okay. We are lost, cried the people, and the priest and the sisters of the convent began praying. The pasta will cover our town, they cried. And it certainly would have had Strickenola not come down the road from her visit. She didn't have to look twice to know what had happened. Here's Strickenola coming home here, looking very sagely. She sang the magic song and blew the 3 kisses. And with a sputter, the pot stopped boiling and the pasta came to a halt. Oh, grazie, thank you, Strickenola, the people cried. But then they turned on poor Big Anthony. Strickenola, the men of the town shouted. Hey, Sarah Canty, hey, Paul, we're going to be talking about keeping kids in the craft. I'm just reading the story while we wait for folks to show up. It's almost done, I promise. Hang in there with me. Now wait, said Strickenola, the punishment must fit the crime. And she took a fork from a lady standing nearby and held it out to Big Anthony. All right, Big Anthony, you wanted pasta and I want to sleep in my little bed tonight. So start eating. And he did. Poor Big Anthony. Yeah. All right. So that was Strickenola by Tommy DePaola. Again, one of my kids, Sarah says she's joined at a very odd time. We're reading a book called Strickenola by Tommy DePaola, and actually this was just the pre-show. I wait for folks to show up. I have another book that I'm actually probably going to read at the very end if anybody hangs around, because it's another fun book that my kids really like. But like I said, today we are talking about keeping kids in the craft. So earlier this week in my blog and in my email articles, I was talking about how to get kids involved, like what things they can do that are kind of at their level, that are appropriate for them to do, that they will enjoy, that they get excited about. And today what I want to talk about was not just getting them involved, but how to keep them interested. Because my kids are kind of back and forth sometimes. And I think that it's useful to have kind of like some tips and tricks on how to do that thing. In my personal journey, as far as having my kids with me, I have 4 kids now. My oldest is 11 and my youngest now is 7 months old. And, when you have kids, all of a sudden it makes it really, really difficult to start going to rituals and participating and even finding the time, especially if you don't have a partner that also practices. It's sort of like you're being left in the lurch and you don't know what to do. So I tried going to some local groups that said they were family friendly, and found that they were not actually as family friendly as they tried to make themselves out to be. And I tried doing it solitary, but without, again, the extra support of my partner also participating at the time. It was really difficult, and trying to corral even 1 kid, never mind 2 and then 3, to do a ritual on my own was like an impossibility. So it was really difficult, So what ultimately worked for me, finding a way to kind of include my children more, was, again, having a partner that, also practices, and not every partner is going to be like, yes, ritual, let me do ritual with you. But at least having a partner that is considering, is willing to participate, is willing to support, helping to watch the kids, helping to, kind of maybe try to keep them on task, but at the very least entertain them while, your ritual is still going. Because if you're not aware, children are able to come in and out of ritual as they please up to a certain age without really affecting things on an energetic level. So if you have a partner that can at the very least be on the opposite side of that circle, try to keep an eye on them, that can be really helpful. But the biggest thing was family, having family involved. And when we think about the evolution of paganism and folk beliefs in history and in the past, sorry, I'm just closing a message over here real quick. When we think about how it was done historically in the past, it was passed down through a family line. It was traditions. They didn't have churches. They didn't have even standard texts and books the way that we have now. Everything was based on what your parents taught you, what your family did for holidays. And it wasn't standardized in any way, real shape or form, other than Joe at the watering fountain earlier today said that his family does this thing too. And that was really the extent of it. It was really very much within these core family groups. And over the course of history, as things have been kind of become taboo, and then not again, and taboo, and not again. We've kind of shifted away from that because we've become so relatively few and far between. But when we have children, it kind of gives us the opportunity to restore what I consider to be the natural way of passing along our traditions. Um, so, uh, right. So, like I said, so earlier this week I talked about what to do with kids to help them stay involved. Things like doing the asperging or this or that, the other thing, and altar setup if you are comfortable with that. But today we're going to talk about how to keep them interested and involved on a mental, emotional, investment level, like wanting them to be in ritual, wanting them to participate, wanting them to learn. One of the very first things that you can do to help your kid want to be involved. And hey, Adam, we're talking about how to keeping kids in the craft, how to help keep them interested and involved with your magical practice for pagan parents. The very first thing you can do is teaching them to learn, to love, to read. And this is something that's kind of nailed into us as parents from the very, very beginning, where they say, well, read to your kids every day. Or, read to your kids every day, or have your kids read to them. And, as parents, we kind of tend to go, okay, yeah, sure, who has time for that? But in reality, that is something that is a good way to foster their desire to learn, because that's the way most of us absorb a lot of the information that we've learned, that we use in our practice from week to week, from day to day, from year to year, is from the things that we read and we learn about, whether it's reading a book or reading something online. So yes, reading to them regularly, especially when they're small, is helpful. Obviously, that's something you can do at bedtime. You'd be like, hey, it's story time. Let's read a book. And it can be Strega Nona, or it can be this other one I'm going to read later. It's called Room on the Broom. There's lots of witchy books out there. Later in the live, I'll actually give you some suggestions and ideas of authors, other than these two, but just kind of a place to start. Of course, obviously, you can also have them read to you, which is really important for them to learn how to do the reading themselves. If your kids are like mine, when they're young, sometimes they don't want to do that thing because they're stubborn butt faces, but it's still a good thing to try to encourage for sure. Let's see. Oh, and I said here, and the other thing too is letting them choose the books. Obviously, when you let your kids choose the books that they want to read, they're going to be a lot more interested in what you're reading, which means curating your collection of books, having things at their disposal that are things that are going to both be instructive and entertaining for them as children. So yes, Dragon On is absolutely one of them. Room of the Broom isn't necessarily educational, but it's witchy, so it's still kind of putting the seed in their head that, this is something fun, this is something interesting that maybe you might want to learn more about. Just adjusting YouTube again, please. So other books like so I've got I also wrote Starhawk, who's a really popular pagan author, has also written some children's books. For Strega Nona, obviously. Another one is Tony de Terliza, which is the author of the Spiderwick Chronicles, I believe, which has a lot of aspects of fantasy and witchcraft and magic in it. Also, Rick Riordan, which is the gentleman who does all of the Percy Jackson books, which are all based on mythology from different pantheons. His original books, I believe, were Greek, but he sort of expanded into like Egyptian and other things and Norse since his original series. And all the kids that are the characters within it are usually the children of gods, so they are themselves demigods. But I digress. Also, of course, J.K. Rowling. I know that she's sort of controversial right now because of her Twitter mishap, but I like to think that one bad comment doesn't negate all of the good messages that can come from her writing, even though she's kind of obviously a total turf, but whatever. J.K. Rowling, Rick Riordan, yeah, that's what I have. And of course, actual mythology. If you are into mythology and you really are hoping to pass the love of that on to your children, there are tons of books out there. Like, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I used to get, baby's first Bible type thing. Like, there are absolutely versions of things like that are for children, like Greek mythology for kids, or Aesop's Fables even. I remember reading that as a child too, which kind of says something looking back. And of course, if they're interested in learning about mythology and that's something that you think they would enjoy, I would also highly recommend Crash Course Mythology, which is a YouTube channel / series, which is excellent, and a lot of it's animated, so I would think it'd be fun for kids. I've watched a little bit with my oldest kid who's 10, 11, and they enjoyed it. So obviously use your common sense on that one. And other than that, like I said, surround them with reading material and making sure that the reading material is things that are subjects that you want them to learn. But also you want to have other stuff. It doesn't necessarily need to be all witchy books. It can be books on witchcraft, of course, but it can also be books on runes, books on tarot, books on mythology, books on symbolism, books on nature-based things like books on trees, books on gardening, books on herbal medicine, books on geology, so on and so forth. Let's see. So, and I made a note here that, obviously none of those things should be very difficult for anybody who's listening or watching your live on the replay. And again, if you guys haven't done it yet, you can give me hashtag live, hashtag replay, depending on when you're watching in the comments. That'd be great. Find us. I read a note here that obviously, us pagan folk tend to hoard books anyway. So having a lot of books around shouldn't really be too big of a challenge, because if you're anything like me, you have a huge stack of books that you've been meaning to read and that you haven't read and are waiting to get to. And we have an entire room basically dedicated to our library at this point. So just being surrounded by books to kids sends a subconscious message of, yes, reading good, please read. And encourage them to take out books and fan through them, even if they're just reading a paragraph or two or looking at the pictures. Those are the seeds of how you get to a love of actual reading. And obviously, you can also share your passions. So the things that you are interested in, especially as they relate to the craft. Again, whether it be tarot, whether it be herbalism or crystals, show those things to your kids, because I don't know of a single kid that doesn't get excited about a sparkly crystal. Hey, Rebellious Black Witch, we're here talking today about keeping kids in the craft, things that you can do to help keep them interested in wanting to learn. Talking about sharing your passions. When you are excited about something, obviously it's going to make your kids a lot more, willing and interested to learn that thing themselves, because they can sense your excitement. They see you're excited. They go, whoa, that sounds really cool. Mom or dad or whoever really, really loves that. I want to try it too. Even if they don't end up interested in it, just for the, even if they're not specifically like, wow, that sounds really cool, it could just be, Mom really likes that, so if I spend time with her doing that thing, maybe she'll spend more time with me. And that can blossom into something even more. So sharing your passions is another thing. And of course, encourage curiosity. And I don't know about you guys, but my kids ask me random questions all the time, and frequently I have to admit to them, I'm like, I'm not really sure what the answer is. Let's look it up. And how easy is it to pull out your phone and say, hey, Google, or hey, Alexa, or hey, Siri, and ask a question. Because it's good for kids to, one, know that that information is at their fingertips. Two, I think that there's power in admitting ignorance and willingness to learn yourself, because that's a learned behavior too. The other thing you can do too is when your kids are asking you questions, consider answering it with another question. Like if they ask you, for example, well, why do I have to wait until the end of the ritual to eat the cookies? I don't know about you, but my kids are all about the cookies at the end. Why do I have to wait until the end of the ritual? Instead of just giving them a straight up answer, say to them, well, why do you think we have to wait? Let's see what they answer. You might be surprised at the insights that they give you and just how accurate they are. And once they have that kind of critical thinking to understand the why, of a situation, instead of being given an answer, it's going to make them more inclined to think critically about things in the future too, which is just generally an important life skill. And also let them kind of direct the learning. Don't, like share your passions, yes, but just because they're not interested in the same exact things as you doesn't mean that you shouldn't let them follow their own passions. So as they try different things, they're going to find some things they like, some things that they don't. So foster their interests. I have one kiddo that really loves to do foraging with me. Hey, Laura, I'm talking about keeping kids in the craft. I'm getting toward the end of the video, but I encourage you to go back and then, watch from the beginning afterwards, so you can see what you missed. I was just talking about letting kids kind of self-direct their own learning. Or even if, a kid asks you about birds, or they're really interested in birds, encourage that. And, and you can, obviously, include information about the science of birds and genus and species and doing bird watching. And you can absolutely roll in the metaphysical, information of, well, eagles mean this and ravens mean this and this is what robins represent, because those are all things that will eventually be absorbed into them. And this is purely anecdotal. Hey, Nature Rich are talking about how to keep kids involved in the craft and encouraging their interest. This is just my personal anecdotal, opinion. I feel like people learn things better, are more interested in learning things when they have a bigger picture. Like for me, tarot is like this, where if I know what one particular symbol in a card means, it kind of is this little crack of a doorway that opens to a whole other level of understanding. And that can be true of anything that you're learning about, not just tarot. Tarot is a good example because it's so symbolic, but that can be true of anything that's symbolic, which is basically everything. So, and the other thing too, as far as letting your kids drive, as it were. Hey, Jackie, talking about keeping kids involved in the craft, and letting kids kind of self-direct their learning. And the other thing to remember too is that even if a child is doing something that you're familiar with, that you know how to do, and you're watching them and they're kind of struggling and they're not really doing it perfectly, let them do it. Number one, it's obviously important to let people fail because that's how they learn. The other thing too is when you let children do things completely on their own, it helps them develop confidence. And, obviously encouraging them too, even if it's not, like 100% perfect exactly the way that you do it. You'd be like, yeah, honey, that's really, really great. Next time maybe we can try doing it this way. Encouraging and let them do things on their own. Because again, that's what's going to help keep them interested and give them the encouragement to keep doing what they're doing. Obviously, I was saying your ethical considerations should be mentioned. Obviously, if you have kids that are interested in spell work and they're like, mommy, well, I guess if a kid who's doing this would be saying mommy, if they were like, Ma, I really want to do a spell to make this boy like me. Hey, Clyde B, we're talking about keeping kids involved in the craft and letting them kind of self-direct their learning. But obviously, if a child wants to do something like a love spell, especially if we're talking teenagers, hey, you shouldn't cast love spells on someone else because it's unethical and it's probably not going to work out the way you think it's going to. Teenager, you can even watch the movie The Craft with them because that kind of goes into that idea, and it might be an aha moment because I think we can all agree that children tend to not always listen to what their parents say, but if somebody else says the same exact thing, then they listen. Same idea. And of course, but if a child is given that warning and they do the thing anyway, that's kind of their own mess to clean up and their own lesson to learn. So again, I don't think that you should not stop them. Plus, if you're telling them not to do the thing and they do it anyway, they're probably not going to let you know they're doing it anyway. So again, failure is an important part of learning. And as far as fostering children's information drive, desire for information or to learn about their passions, again, I'm going to recommend Crash Course on YouTube in general, actually, because there is tons of information out there. Tons of great channels, and Crash Course itself has a ton of different playlists, each one devoted to a different topic, so you can find almost anything there, and it's a great place to start. You can also try TikTok and Instagram and all the other things that all the kiddos are doing today that I'm not familiar with, but YouTube I think is a really great learning resource in general. But when it comes to I talked earlier about sharing your passions with them. But it's important to understand that, if they try that thing and they don't really love it, don't force it. Because as soon as you start forcing things, kids will lose interest immediately invested in something. So yeah. And then of course they can also learn through play. I think that's how children are designed to learn, is through play. If you're talking about keeping kids involved in the craft, just about at the end, you're actually talking about how children really learn best through playing and activities, as opposed to lecture. Like talking at a kid is a surefire way to get them to completely close down and not paying attention to you. Playing is a really great way to do it, and there are lots of games out there that you can use to do that thing. If your kids are really into learning about herbs, there's a really great game out there called Wildcrafting, which is all about the idea is that you're trying to get to grandma's house and you pull different herb cards for different maladies that you encounter along the way. So the kids are effectively learning herbal first aid in the midst of playing this game. If your kids are really interested in developing their intuition or their psychic ability, the game Mastermind, which I don't know about all you guys, but I loved the game Mastermind as a kid, not because of any me thinking that I was psychic per se, at least conscious, unconscious level, but I love the game Mastermind. And if you're not familiar with the game Mastermind, it's a little pegboard with a little partition that flips up to hide the row that's closest to the person. And there's 4 different colored pegs, and you have to arrange them in an order behind your partition. And the person on the other side puts the pegs in to make a guess, intuitive, suggestion of what they believe you've chosen behind here. And obviously, and the goal is that by the time they get to a certain point, they guess correctly based on what they've got right or not. But Mastermind is super fun. My oldest also loves that game, so that makes me happy. And of course, there are games that you can find online. So the final thing I have to mention is on there's a website called littlepaganacorns.com. They have a goddess game on there, which has a board you could print out, which is super pagan witchy too. Super fun for kids. So if your kids are really into board games, that's another thought too. So that said, if anybody has any questions, I would love to hear about it in the comments. If you're here watching, a hashtag live or hashtag replay again would be swell. And tell me a little bit about the things that you did as a kid that you think were witchy that kind of helped to encourage or going, and I think right in here actually, but also like outdoor play. I feel like just being outdoors also kind of fosters naturally in children an appreciation for the magic of nature, which will translate to a belief in practice of magic perhaps later on down the road. What was I going to say? If there are other things that you did as a kid that you feel like really helped you develop your magical practice as an adult, tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to. While you guys are talking and typing and thinking, I am going to read Room on the Broom. This book is by this is 2 authors called Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler. All right, and it's kind of Dr. Seussy. It's very rhymey. It's got a lot of good cadence to it. So let's see. I'll figure out how I can hold this. The witch had a cat and a hat that was black and long ginger hair and a braid down her back. How the cat purred and how the witch grinned as they sat on their broomstick and flew through the wind. But how the witch hailed and how the cat spat when the wind blew so wildly it blew off her hat. Down, cried the witch, and they flew to the ground. They searched for the hat, but no hat could be found. Then out of the bushes, on thundering paws, there bounded a dog with a hat in his jaws. He dropped it politely, then eagerly said, as the witch pulled the hat firmly down on her head, I am a dog as keen as can be. Is there room on the broom for a dog like me? Yes, cried the witch, and the dog clambered on. The witch tapped the broomstick, and whoosh, they were gone. Megan says that she was just outside all the time and was always attracted to rocks. Me, too. Still attracted to rocks, still collecting rocks. They are all over the place. My Facebook is like frozen. Hopefully it's still actually going here. Yeah, it looks like it is. All right, even though mine is paused for reasons unbeknownst to me. Let's keep reading. All right. Where was I? Oh. All right, I didn't turn the page. Over the fields and the forest they flew. The dog wagged his tail and the stormy wind blew. The witch laughed out loud and held onto her hat, but away blew the bow from her braid, just like that. Then out from a tree with an ear-splitting shriek, there flapped a bird with the bow on her beak. She dropped it politely and bent her head low. Oh, shit, I did that in the wrong order. All right, I'm going to start this page again. Sorry about that. It doesn't make sense otherwise. Over the fields of the forest they flew. The dog wagged his tail and the stormy wind blew. Megan says she wanted to share McKenna's Viking photo, but it won't let me. Post it in the group. The witch laughed out loud and held onto her hat, but away blew the bow from her braid, just like that. Then out from the tree with... Oh, I'm doing it again. Down, cried the witch, and they flew to the ground. They searched for the bow, but no bow could be found. Then out from a tree with a shriek, there flapped a green bird with a bow in her beak. She dropped it quickly and bent her head low. Then said the witch and tied the braid in her bow. I am a bird as great as can be. Is there room on a broom for a bird like me? Yes, cried the witch, so the bird fluttered on. The witch tapped the broomstick and whoosh, they were gone. Over the reeds and the rivers they flew. The bird shrieked with glee and the stormy wind blew. They shot through the sky to the back of beyond. The witch clutched her bow and let go of her wand. Down, cried the witch, and they flew to the ground. They searched for the wand, but no wand could be found. Then all of a sudden, from out of the pond leaped a dripping wet frog with a dripping wet wand. He dropped it politely and said with a croak as the witch dried the wand on a fold of her cloak, I am a frog as clean as can be. As clean as can be is the room on the broom for a frog like me. Yes, said the witch, so the frog bounded on, and the witch tapped the broomstick, and whoosh, they were gone. Hey, Avi, we're actually just wrapping up with this reading of this little book here called Room on a Broom, but feel free to go back and rewatch to hear about keeping kids in the craft. Over the moors and the mountains they flew, the frog jumped for joy, and the broom snapped in too. Down fell the cat and the dog and the frog, down they went tumbling into a bog. The witch's half broomstick flew into a cloud, and the witch heard a roar that was scary and loud. I am a dragon as mean as can be, and witch with French fries tastes delicious to me. No, cried the witch, flying higher and higher. The dragon flew after her, breathing out fire. Help, cried the witch, flying down to the ground. She looked all around, but no help could be found. The dragon drew near with a glint in his eye and said, just this once I'll have witch without fries. But just as he planned to begin on his feast, from out of a ditch rose a horrible beast. It was tall, dark, and sticky, and feathered and furred. It had 4 frightful heads. It had wings like a bird. And its terrible voice, when it started to speak, was a yowl and a growl and a croak and a shriek. It dripped and it squelched and it strode from the ditch, and it said to the dragon, Buzz off! That's my witch. The dragon drew back and he started to shake. I'm sorry, he sputtered. I made a mistake. It's nice to have met you, but now I must fly. He spread out his wings and was off through the sky. Then down flew the bird, and down jumped the frog, down climbed the cat, and whew, said the dog. And thank you, oh thank you, the grateful witch cried. Without you, I'd be in that dragon's inside. Then she filled up her cauldron and said with a grin, Find something, everyone, throw it in. So the frog found a lily, the cat found a cone, the bird found a twig, and the dog found a bone. They threw them all in, and the witch stirred them well, and while she was stirring, she muttered a spell. Ziggity, ziggity, zaggity, zoom! Then out rose a truly magnificent little broom. Excuse me. With seats for the witch and the cat and the dog, and nest for the bird and a pool for the frog. Yes, cried the witch, and they all clambered on. The witch tapped the broomstick, and whoosh, they were gone. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you all have a lovely weekend. I have a baby blessing this weekend. Megan here on Facebook. Our babies are having a baby blessing together. I think my other children are joining too, because they've actually never had a baby blessing themselves either. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend. Very, very busy. So I hope you guys have good things happening too. And I will catch you next week, where we're going to be focusing on Independence Day. We're going to be talking about your legal rights to religious freedom, and how to talk to people about the craft. You know, friends and families, people that and employers, people that might discriminate against you. Things that you can say to explain things to them that are on their level to help remove the stigma. So that'll be next week, and I hope you guys all take care.